mind, what does Exodus 17:16 mean when it says that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation? Well, the Amalekites referred to in Scripture were an ancient civilization that were loosely related to Esau, of Jacob and Esau fame, but they were actually distinct from Edom, or Esau's descendants, known as the Edomites. But they're just an ancient civilization that existed, and at the time that Israel came out of Egypt, the Amalekites lived not too far from Egypt. And they saw this nation of people coming out of slavery, out of Egypt, and they saw what they thought would be an easy mark, right? Some people they could take advantage of and maybe raid them or steal what they had or whatever. So they decided to attack the Hebrews in the wilderness, but they did it in a way that was rather insidious. Now, in our modern way of thinking, we have what are known as war crimes, right? There are rules of war that cannot, or at least should not, be broken. And basically what the Amalekites did was commit war crimes against Israel, or the Hebrews. They attacked them, but not their fighting men. Instead, they specifically attacked women and children and the elderly. That's who they went after when they attacked Israel. In Deuteronomy 25, it says that the Amalekites attacked Israel when they were in no shape for fighting because they had just come out of slavery, right? So they're weak. They haven't gained their strength. They don't really have any training for battle or anything like that. And not only that, but the Amalekites attacked, it says in Deuteronomy 25, those who were lagging behind. So you have this huge group of Hebrews, and in the back of that group are people who can't travel as fast as everyone else. Again, namely women with children and the elderly. And that's where the Amalekites decided to attack. They decided to attack the women, the children, and the elderly. But then Israel gains victory over the Amalekites in that battle. This is recorded in Exodus 17. You've probably read this story before where every time Moses raises his hands, the Israelites start to win, but then when his hands come down, they start to lose, and so they end up putting big rocks under his hands to keep his hands up, and then eventually they get the victory. But the point is that what the Amalekites did to attack the women, children, and elderly of Israel is so foul, so disgusting, so without honor or integrity or dignity that God promises to utterly wipe them out. In Exodus 17, he says that he will have war with them from generation to generation. In Deuteronomy, God says that he's going to blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. It's going to be completely gone. God is absolutely disgusted by what the Amalekites did, so much so that he's going to utterly destroy them. And then hundreds of years go by, and Israel has their first king, King Saul. And in the book of 1 Samuel, God decides that it's finally time to make good on his promise and take out the Amalekites for good, once and for all. And so he gives Saul this task, and he says, Saul, I want you to go and fight against the Amalekites and destroy them completely, right? Blot out their name from under heaven. Take them all out. The men, women, children, livestock, everything they own, I want it burned. I want it all gone. So Saul goes on this errand that God has given him to fight against the Amalekites. He meets them in battle, comes back victorious, but he doesn't do exactly what God said. He kills most of the Amalekites, and he destroys most of their properties, but not all of it. In fact, he takes their king captive and parades their king around as kind of like a trophy, and he keeps all the best of the animals, and he keeps some of their really valuable items that they had as well. And so Saul does not do what God tells him to do, and this is actually the thing that basically forfeits the kingdom from Saul, by disobeying God in this way. This is where God says, because of this, you're done. I'm not going to allow you to keep going on. And so the Amalekites are not yet totally wiped out because of Saul. But then later on in Israel's history, David becomes king, and he goes and battles against the Amalekites again. But even he couldn't utterly wipe them out. And so over time, Israel continued to battle against the Amalekites until there was no record of them left on the earth during the reign of King Hezekiah, actually. So God's promise was fulfilled. He had war with the Amalekites for generations, from generation to generation, until he finally won. So I think one of the lessons we can get from this is don't go to war with God, right? It's a war you can't win. Don't try to push back against God, and don't do things that offend him, because he will ultimately get the last word, just like he did with the Amalekites.